Do you ever find yourself running on empty emotionally? Feeling like you've hit the burnout jackpot and are just done with people? Well, you're not alone. This experience is known as compassion fatigue, and I suspect many of us are currently dealing with it. I'm licensed therapist Kati Morton, and if you're anything like me, a card-carrying member of the Empathy Club, you might have noticed a strange phenomenon lately. You care about people, genuinely care, but when someone starts unloading their struggles onto you, you feel overwhelmed or exhausted by it. Some of my friends have even said that they feel themselves like internally rolling their eyes, which has left me wondering, why don't I have the capacity for compassion like I used to? What's wrong with me? So I did some research, and let's figure it out together. Now, I know compassion fatigue sounds like a heavy term, but bear with me. In this video, we're going to break down what it is, why it happens, and what we can do to remedy this. Because it's not about losing our compassion. It's about navigating the sometimes turbulent and often murky seas of empathy. Also, in a minute, I'm going to walk you through a little quiz so you can assess for yourself whether or not you have compassion fatigue. But first, what is compassion fatigue? It's a condition characterized by a gradual lessening of compassion and empathy, experienced by individuals, particularly those in caregiving professions. This happens because of prolonged exposure to the emotional and psychological needs of others. It is often associated with the demanding nature of providing care and support to people who are suffering, traumatized, or in distress. Almost like we don't have any more care left to give because it's all been used up. In short, what I learned is that I've been feeling so burned out because I have overloaded my empathy circuits, and they've shut down, kind of in an attempt to reboot. But you don't have to be a mental health professional or an ER doc to be experiencing this. It can happen to anyone, especially since we're all so connected. We can feel bad for people all over the world, people we haven't even met before, or those whose struggles we aren't familiar with. But let's get into what causes compassion fatigue. And the first thing is exposure to others' trauma. Maybe we're exposed to trauma or suffering because of our work, whether it's in healthcare, counseling, social work, emergency services, or other caregiving professions. Or maybe that exposure is from footage or posts that you see constantly scrolling on social media or reading the news. Number 2 is continuous caregiving responsibilities. Some of you might have a caretaking role in your life where you have ongoing responsibilities for the well-being of others, like being a mother, father, or caring for an ailing parent. The consistent emotional investment in the needs of others can lead to emotional exhaustion, especially if our caregiving happens at home, so we really don't get any breaks from it. Number 3 is a lack of self-care and boundaries. Insufficient self-care practices and the absence of clear boundaries between personal and professional life can contribute to the development of compassion fatigue. Individuals may neglect their own well-being while prioritizing the needs of others. In other words, we light ourselves on fire to keep others warm. Okay, quiz time. Do you have compassion fatigue? And let's do this quiz kind of like a put a finger down style. There are 10 things total, okay? So put a finger down if you resonate with the things that I mentioned. Starting off with emotional exhaustion, like you feel emotionally drained or depleted, have persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, loss of interest in activities that were once enjoyable. That's 1. 2, decreased empathy, difficulty connecting emotionally with others. You can feel really numb or detached and have a reduced ability to feel compassion for people who are in distress. Moving on. Increased irritability, have a short temper, be really impatient with people. We can feel resentful or frustrated when things are hard to manage. Can have a sensitivity to minor stressors. Next one, number 4, insomnia or sleep disturbances. Difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep. We can have nightmares or intrusive thoughts that affect our sleep. And we can feel tired even after we get a full night's rest. Number 5 is the physical symptoms of this. Can have headaches or migraines, digestive issues such as stomach aches, nausea, muscle tension, aches. Finally, we could have a weakened immune system, leading to increased illnesses. Number 6 is cynicism and detachment. This is when we would withdraw emotionally from colleagues, friends, or family. We can develop a cynical outlook on work and just like life in general. We can feel a sense of isolation or loneliness. 7 is difficulty concentrating. We have trouble focusing on tasks. We're forgetful and we have memory lapses. And we have a reduced ability to make decisions. We can sometimes feel like frozen. 8 is intrusive thoughts. recurrent thoughts about traumatic or distressing experiences, flashbacks or mental images related to challenging situations, or a difficulty, kind of like shaking off distressing memories, like we can't move past them. 9 is decreased job satisfaction. We have a loss of enthusiasm at work, questioning the value or impact of our contributions. And finally, 10 is avoidance behaviors. And this one's really big. We avoid situations or people associated with the caregiving related stress. We can withdraw from social activities or any other responsibilities. And we use a lot of distractions, excessive use of technology or substances just to cope and kind of numb out. If you put more than 4 fingers down, it's likely that you're experiencing some symptoms of compassion fatigue. And like I said, compassion fatigue is incredibly common and it takes a serious toll on our mental and physical health. And it's so incredibly common. So common, in fact, that when you do just a basic search on Google Scholar, hundreds of research studies come up about it. Like one in 2019 that found that 86% of nurses, 86%, had moderate to high levels of compassion fatigue. And 82% of emergency nurses had high levels of burnout. Another study in 2018 found that most mental health care professionals experienced average levels, whatever that means, of compassion fatigue. Now, the interesting thing is compare that with studies performed in 2010. So that's 2018. 2010 showed that only 5% of mental health care providers were experiencing compassion fatigue. And to me, it's clear that it's getting worse. There's a great demand, which is why it's important to know the signs before it gets too bad. Baranowski and Gentry created a 5-stage model to further describe the trajectory of compassion fatigue. And those 5 stages are, stage 1 is the helping role. I think we can all kind of attached to this because it's that excitement or enthusiasm you can feel for helping someone else. It's the reason a lot of us get into these types of roles. We feel good that we can step up and help our parent who's not doing well, or we can get that job and we can make so much positive change in the world. This is a great stage. There's nothing wrong with it, but we have to be careful with it because if we don't monitor it or pay attention, we can go overboard, which moves me into stage number 2, which is denial. So when we start to feel like a little bit irritated, a little bit stagnant, a little bit annoyed, we might be experiencing some compassion fatigue, but we're the helper. I help people. We push through. We don't take care of ourselves first, right? So we keep trying to pour from an empty cup. Then we move into stage 3, and this is called intrusion. And this is when things take over. We have intrusive thoughts, nightmares, flashbacks. Everything starts creeping in. We start to feel tense in our shoulders. We start to feel kind of nauseous. It's almost like what I would call the line in mental health treatment where we go from like having some symptoms to it becoming almost diagnosable, right? Because it's affecting our ability to function. So stage 3 intrusion is when all those symptoms I just have had you go through in your quiz start showing up. Moving into stage 4, irritability and withdrawal. Now, I have experienced this part in my past experiences with burnout, and this is kind of when we just feel so overwhelmed, like everyone's asking us for everything. It can feel like that. People are just always wanting our time and our energy and our empathy for their situation, and we just can't. We can isolate, we can ignore phone calls, emails. A lot of people will take a lot of time off from work and just stay in bed. That's when this happens. We can be really agitated easily, like those other symptoms I talked about, when you just feel like you're on edge and anything can set you off. And stage 5, exhaustion and burnout. And I feel like that one kind of goes without saying. It's self-explanatory, right? We don't have any more compassion left. We're completely burnt. We can feel tired all the time, no matter how much sleep we get. The quote unquote self-care we offer ourselves isn't doing it. And we're completely dry of any compassion. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning of this video when I said, some people will say, my friends have told me when people start telling them about their struggles, they kind of internally roll their eyes. We don't have anything left. We're exhausted. And my goal would be for us to catch ourselves when we're kind of just feeling a little bit depleted before we go into that denial stage, right? We don't want to move into the denial if we start feeling some form of stagnation, some exhaustion. When those symptoms start, reveal themselves in our lives a little bit, that's where we want to stop it. Before we become irritable, we feel complete burnout, and all of the other symptoms come along with it. We want to catch it there. So if you find yourself already in one of these stages, let's jump into some things that we can do to try to combat it. And I encourage you to pick one to try out this week and let me know in the comments which one you choose, just to kind of hold each other accountable. I'll leave one in there too. And the first tip that I have, and one that you guys know I struggle with and I work on it, is boundaries. Remember, boundaries are what we will and will not do. We often think of boundaries as what we're going to ask other people to do, like, don't talk to me that way. But that's just a request. Sure, we can put in a request with someone, but we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. So a boundary is what we will be doing or not doing in certain situations. For example, if we don't want them talking to us that way, then the boundary would be, if you keep talking to me like this, I'm going to have to leave. And then they keep up their bad behavior, we leave. But in keeping with our conversation about compassion fatigue, a good example of placing a boundary would be, I know you guys aren't going to like this, but just hang with me, is to say no to any extra shifts at work. Or to not double book yourself on your one day off from your caring duties. And I had somebody recently ask me what double book means. It might be a term that I use. So to double book means to schedule things that overlap in time. So if you have someone wants to meet up for lunch at noon, and then you have somebody else who's like, hey, can you catch that yoga class with me at 12:30? And you say yes to both. And you can't be two places at once. You have double booked yourself. Okay? So don't do that. And then we also have boundaries around what we will and will not do. This could mean that we need to define our boundaries with social media and with the news. And if you need help with this, I have a boundary workshop on my website. You can check that out too. It can kind of help you learn how to place these in your life and uphold them over time. But let's move on to my next tip, and that is rest and relaxation. Take real breaks. I say this to myself as much as I'm saying it to you, but also ensure that you get adequate sleep and incorporate relaxation techniques into your routine, such as deep breathing exercises, journaling, or mindfulness meditation. It can help us to get on a sleep schedule too. So going to bed at the same time every night is better for us and ensures we can get to sleep quickly when we finally do make it to bed. And if you're way off right now, no judgments. Just know that moving it by 30 or 40 minutes each night is best. And it will help you get back into schedule, or a healthy schedule really, without shocking your system. I also have an older video full of sleep habits. I'll link it in the description just in case it's helpful. And you could also do some breathing exercises. In fact, let's do a relaxation technique / breathing exercise together right now. And it's called 4x4 breathing. I've done it with you guys a lot. Other people call it box breathing. So find a comfortable position. Sit or lie down, doesn't matter. If possible, keep your back straight, so against the floor, up against a wall. Close your eyes. And closing your eyes can help you focus on your breath, and it will minimize external distractions. So inhale and count to 4. So do it through your nose. Then we hold our breath at the top for 4 seconds. And we breathe out for 4. Then we pause for 4. And we breathe in again. And we do this cycle, this 4x4 box breathing cycle, 4 times. So it's really easy to remember. 4, 4, 4, 4. And doing this for several rounds. I'm not going to lie. Years ago, I did a video where I showed this particular breathing exercise to all of you. And afterwards, I just felt so sleepy. So I know it works. I know people, want to shit talk breathing exercises all the time, but they do really help. So give it a try. Moving along to my third tip, which is to engage in activities you enjoy. Reconnect with hobbies and activities that used to excite you or be relaxing. And these are things that are outside of your caregiving responsibilities. This could bring a level of fulfillment that you maybe have been missing, and it might be compounding your compassion fatigue. So think about it. What's something that you're doing only for you? What's a hobby you love? Make space for this. Or is there something that you want to get better at? Working at something like that not only improves our mood, but it also makes us feel more confident in ourselves. So it's kind of like a win-win. Moving on to my fourth and final tip, seek support. We all knew this one was coming. We have to reach out to our support networks. This could include colleagues, friends, family. Share your feelings and experiences with someone you trust, or connect more deeply with our online community here. Connection is so important, and being reminded that we aren't alone in All of this can be really healing. And also consider seeking professional help, counselor or a therapist in your area, so you can explore and address the emotional toll of your caregiving work. I think it's also great because you just have a consistent weekly check-in where you can talk about what's going on and how you're feeling. And if your workplace has support systems in place, such as EAPs or employee assistance programs, you can utilize those resources, and they're usually free. To me, the worst part about this is that it happens to people who feel a lot of compassion and empathy, meaning this affects our carers and those we've probably leaned on in our tough times. We need those people to be able to continue doing what they do. So I hope this offers you a better understanding of why this happens and what we can do to better mitigate it. And to those of us who feel like it's part of who you are, compassion fatigue somehow snatches away from us the very precious part of our personality. And so caring for yourself in this is really about reclaiming who you are. So take a small step this week and try out one of those 4 tools that I offered, and trust me, it can and will get better.